Welcome to our video series, Hiding Behind the Mask, Conversations on Shame and Narcissism, combining psychological and spiritual perspectives. This is a 12-part series moderated by Dr. Kristen Seavey and featuring the insight of Reverend Robert Hirschfield, Episcopal Bishop of New Hampshire, and Dr. Patricia Gianotti, clinical psychologist and author. Each video segment will begin with a brief introduction by Dr. Seavey, where she will describe an overview of the content material. At the end of each section, a set of questions will appear on your screen. These questions are meant for personal reflection, or you may use the questions as a springboard for small group discussion. We hope you enjoy this series. And now, Dr. Seavey.
This segment addresses the need for psychological and spiritual leaders in our community to empower others to confront rampant grandiosity in our midst. How can we create opportunities for people to experience vulnerability and connectedness in a safe environment that can help empower more people to address the inappropriate use of power when they encounter it in their daily lives?
I think there is a lot of narcissistic behavior going on in many arenas in this world. And we can sense it and feel it, but not necessarily know the best way to bring into our lives and to give back to others in a way that that will make a step forward into bringing us together in a whole, in a bigger. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Any thoughts?
Is it my turn to go first? Yeah, I think we're all a little stymied about that. I think it has to be grassroots. I think first of all, we can't hold up the world. We're not that big. And I think we have to look around and see what part of our own communities we can get more involved in, or what cause really speaks to us in a way that we can lend more support, and to become more engaged and active and connected with each other. I think it's very easy, because we all live such busy lives, to be occupied with family in our own little arenas. And because, as you said, there's so much narcissism all around us, I don't think we can afford to do that anymore in the same way that we used to. And I don't have the answer or the formula as to what to do, but I think for me, part of what I'm doing here this evening is getting outside of my office and doing more. Part of what I've been so frustrated about is the way that the media and the way we get information is being delivered to us, that the increase in technology actually seems to be contributing to having a hypnotic effect on our psyches, actually. That how many times can you hear and listen to a bombing disaster on the news over and over again? Or how many times do you have to be updated on the most recent weather disaster that's coming across? And what do we think is going to happen to our psyches if we hear that, in our adrenal system, if we hear that over and over and over again? So rather than being more informed, it feels as though there's some hypnotic trance that's happening. It's like creating a numbing agent, and in a sense, a PTSD kind of response if we're hearing that over and over and over again. So part of what I wanted to do in talking with the bishop and with Chris and with all of you is to find a way to put something different on the airwaves, to put this on YouTube, and to create a different kind of message that rather than numbing people out and putting people to sleep, that it would be waking people up to having conversations with each other in their own communities. I'm hoping that this would be a model and a springboard, if anybody's watching, that they would want to begin having conversations in their own communities, in their own churches, in their own dioceses, in their own volunteer organizations, to talk about how we can hold each other differently in community, how we can cut through some of this isolation that we're all feeling. So there's some combination of a numbing and an isolation that keeps being perpetuated by the information streams that we're getting. And I think that needs to be stated out in the open, for one thing. And how to be informed without becoming addicted to listening to something that's actually inducing mild trauma every time you watch it. So that's one thought I had. How about you, Bishop Rob?
Well, you mentioned the phenomenon of the breakdown of institutions and community. Social scientists have talked for a number of years now, maybe decades, opportunities for people to be vulnerable with one another in a safe place. At a church I served, we had something called the Ailred meeting, the Ailred group. Ailred was an 11th, 12th century monk who allowed his monks to hold hands. He wrote a treatise called Spiritual Friendship. And this group was a men's group that got together, and we read a prayer of St. Ailred, and then we shared as much as we could what was really broken in our lives. Strained marriages, relationships with our children that were not comfortable. Some talked about, we sometimes quipped about what usually took place as the organ recital, which is, my kidneys are starting to act up, or, I'm having a problem with angina or whatever. And it was the organ recital. So we all kind of shared that, and it was a way where there was no shame. And we felt that, oh my gosh, here we are, travelers on this journey. We're imperfect. We have these, what the world might think as important, flawless lives, but they're not. And the power of those conversations was really healing. And some of those folks didn't come to church on Sunday. It didn't matter. They felt like there was a power and a presence which was stronger than shame, stronger even than death. And we're lacking that in our suburbanized, ex-urban lives. David Brooks has said our neighbors have become strangers. That phenomenon seemed to have been heightened during the last presidential campaign, where suddenly we're seeing yard signs for candidates that we thought, wait a second, that's my neighbor. He doesn't really believe that, does he? And then it was suddenly we realized that we are just on different planets. And that was the result of years and years and years of alienation that had accrued over time. So I think that's not the magic solution, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. Yeah.
I had another thought to your question, too.
I was in London in the spring, and it was Yogi was speaking. And when the question was asked to him, how do we handle the fear that we're all feeling in life right now? And he said, what you do is you take it in and you filter it. Bring about in your response in life is goodness, love, and the positive energy. So just that's what comes back. So don't fear it. Just put love out.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
The following questions are meant to stimulate personal reflection or small group discussion. We encourage you to capture a screenshot of these questions and use them for future reference. To order Dr. Gianotti's books, please contact the following websites. And Reverend Hirschfield's book is available through churchpublishing.org.